All right, Bismillah. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وأنعم على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم أما بعد. All right, so as a quick recap from last dars, we went over how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very, if you would, very sensitive towards the feelings of Sitna Fatima alayhi salam. And in short, basically, we discussed how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not allow Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu alayhi salam to get married to another woman while he was married to Sitna Fatima alayhi salam, and he straight up said that if he wishes to go marry someone else, that he can divorce Fatima and then go marry whoever he wants, but he's not getting married to anybody while he's married to Sitna Fatima alayhi salam. And then we also saw, again, and then we mentioned how that was the case with regard to the other sisters of Sitna Fatima alayhi salam, how they all felt essentially the same way, and how the Prophet alayhi salam basically said that that if he were to do that, that it would be a fitna for her in her deen. Like, believe it or not, imagine we're talking about, Sitna Fatima alayhi salam, yani Sayyidatu Nisa al-Alameen, the best of all women, right? And the Prophet alayhi salam was saying, that he was worried that if Sayyidina Ali alayhi salam took someone else in marriage while being married to Fatima alayhi salam, that it would be a fitna for her deen. And then we also saw after that as well that with regards to the fiqh and the understanding of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, to a similar, on the same note, but on a little bit of a different aspect, where it was the grandson, okay, of Sitna Fatima. Okay, so the grandson of Sitna Fatima alayhi salam wa alayhi salam, he was married to his cousin, the daughter of Sayyidina al-Hussein. So the son of Sayyidina al-Hassan was married to the daughter of Sayyidina al-Hussein alayhim salam. And then he also, there was some talk about him getting married to someone else as well. Again, this is just a recap from last dars. And then there was some talk about, him getting married to someone else, etc. And we went through the whole hadith and the adab of the Sahabi radiallahu anhu, the father of the daughter of the daughter that he was proposing to get, to marry as a second wife. He took him aside, essentially, long story short, and basically told him that, you're married, to the granddaughter of Sitna Fatima alayhi salam. And we all know that Sitna Fatima alayhi salam, and this is after she had already passed away. Okay. And he says that, and we all know that Sitna Fatima alayhi salam was not okay with, someone else being married to another wife while being married to her. And he said to him, he said that I can't harm her. He said it would harm her, even though she had passed away. This is the fiqh and understanding of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. He said, I cannot harm Sitna Fatima alayhi salam while you have, her granddaughter already in your home. So then he's like, so even he said, yes, you know what, you're right, I'm sorry, you know what, forget all about this. Again, that was just a recap from last dars. Today we get into, again, more of the strong connection between Sitna Fatima alayhi salam and Sayyidina Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam. Again, just for the sake of time, I'm going once in a while, or for the most part, I'm going to avoid the Arabic. Once in a while, I'll throw it in there, inshallah. And as I said to some of the guys at the beginning of the dars, I don't know, I'm getting a message as if the call is supposed to end soon for some reason, even though I just started it. If that happens, I'm going to jump back in so you guys can jump back in, inshallah, if that happens. So here we have a hadith from Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu. He says that once Sitna Fatima alayhi salam came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, with a piece of bread. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam said to her, he says, what is this? And she says, this is, some bread that I made. And she says to him, alayhi salatu wassalam, she says to him that, basically, that it feels wrong. It feels wrong that I eat without having fed you first. So basically, she would never eat until she went and fed some of it to the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So when she gave him, it was just a piece of bread. When she gave him the piece of bread, he says to Sitna Fatima alayhi salam, he says that this is the first meal, if you would. He says alayhi salatu salam that this is the first meal that I have eaten in 3 days. Imagine the Prophet alayhi salatu salam. Now, he would have dates and things like that, but an actual something that was cooked, something that was baked or whatever, he said this is the first meal, if you would, and it was just a piece of bread. And basically that if you had not, come and, offered this to me, I wouldn't have had anything to eat as well. And we had discussed, this type of very similar situation with Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam as well in the previous durus. Now, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam got sick, Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam had a very, very, very hard time dealing with it. And here, sorry, one sec. And then here in this situation, Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam, she knew that something was off. Okay. So here, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam got sick, and when Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam heard about that, she became very, very uneasy, and she came to see him. And then when she came to see him, obviously she came and she was very sad. She was crying. And why she started crying was because she knew it was serious. Because when she came in to see the Prophet ﷺ, it was the first time. It was the first time in his entire life that he did not get up to greet her. And not just greet her anytime that he would see her, that he would greet her, he would always kiss her on her forehead. Alayhi salatu wassalam. And this time he was unable to do so. So she knew that this was serious. So the hadith is from al-Mu'mineen Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha. And she starts off the hadith again by saying, and again, please remember who's narrating the hadith. Remember this, and I'm gonna mention these things later on in the seerah why. But again, Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha is narrating the hadith, and she's saying that I had never seen anybody so similar to the Prophet alayhi salatu salam in his appearance, in the way he walked, the way he sat, the way he talked, everything. She said nobody was as similar to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than Fatima alayha salam wa radiallahu anha. And then Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha also, explains that anytime Sayyidina Fatima, in the same hadith, she mentioned that anytime Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam would come see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would get up, he would greet her, kiss her on her forehead, etc. Except this one time. So this one time when the Prophet ﷺ was unable to do all that, Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam went to him, and she kind of bent over to kiss him and to hug him, etc. Um, Now, one of the main differences, and a lot of, we'll be straightforward here, a lot of Sunnis have an issue when, whether it's Sunnis or Shias, talk about the preference of Sitna Fatima alayhi salam above her siblings. Okay, and some Sunnis become very uh, agitated, if you would, or annoyed. Why Fatima? Why Fatima? Again, because the whole Sunni Shia issue. They're like, they think it's a Shia thing when it's actually not. In any case, so now, one of the main things that does, in fact, differentiate her and bring her way above the ranks of her siblings is the following, which is number one, the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her children. So basically, the lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was through Sitna Fatima. So that's a virtue, alayhi salam, that she has that nobody else has. So whether we like it or not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose her for that. Okay, and another one was actually the care and the love and the concern she had for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was sick at the end of his life. Obviously, if you guys remember, obviously all of the other children had passed away before the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except in this case. So she also got all the reward for caring for her father and having these emotions towards him, etc. Um, so now, again, when she came in to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the state, she knew that this was the end. When she saw that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was unable to get up and greet her and kiss her on the forehead, she knew instantly, which is why she started crying and she became very emotional. This hadith is from Sidna Anas radiallahu anhu. He said, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam became very ill, um, Sitna Fatima alayhi salam, she said the famous saying, was very well known saying. She said, وَكَرْبَ أَبَاه فَقَالَ لَهَا لَيْسَ عَلَى أَبِيكِ كَرْبٌ بَعْدَ الْيَوْمِ. When she came in, she saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She's like, basically, she's like, oh, my father, what has befallen you, essentially. And then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that there is no more hardship after today, essentially. فلما مات قالت يا أبتاه. And then after he passed away sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she said the very famous saying, يا أبتاه أجاب ربا دعاه. يا أبتاه إلى جنة الفردوس مأواه. يا أبتاه إلى جبريل ننعاه. فلما دفن صلى الله عليه وسلم قالت السيدة فاطمة عليها السلام. So when the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام was finally buried, just to show you the attachment that she had to him, and the virtues that she was blessed with, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed her with, that subhanallah her siblings did not have the opportunity to be a part of. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was buried, Sitna Fatima alayhi salam, she was having a tough time seeing that that image, and she said, "Ya Anas," she said, "Oh Anas, أطابت أنفسكم أن تحثوا على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم التراب." She says, how are you able to throw dirt on the body of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام? And they had to bury him, obviously. But because of her pain and her love for the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, she's telling Anas radiallahu anhu, she's saying, how are you guys able to do that? How are you able to put dirt on the body of the Prophet the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And again, another hadith from Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, he says that Sitta Fatima alayhi salam, she cried and she said essentially that same saying we just quoted a second ago. And there are a lot of like poems, if you want, or even anashid, if you would, that Sitna Fatima alayhi salam said in love towards her father alayhi salatu wassalam. And especially after his death. And Sitna Fatima alayhi salam was very well known for her speech and her khutbahs, and all of those things. I'll just mention a couple lines. وقد أنشدت عليها السلام ماذا على من شم تربة أحمد ألا يشم مدى الزمان غواليا صبت علي مصائب لو أنها صبت على الأيام صرنا لياليا. This is a poem from Sittah Fatima alayhi salam, expressing her sorrow and her pain after the death of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. There's another one, it's a little bit longer, but in any case, we'll skip it inshallah for now. I want to get over this section so we can get into something new inshallah next dars. Now, one of the other virtues of Sittah Fatima alayhi salam also is the following very popular story. And again, who is narrating it? Sitna Aisha al-Mu'mineen radiyallahu anha. Again, she starts off the hadith by saying, I have never seen anybody as close in similarity to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his looks, in the way he talked, in the way he walked, in the way he sat, in the way he stood, everything. She said that she was a copy paste of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And essentially, it's the same hadith as mentioned earlier. However, there's an addition to it at the end where she elaborates, and she says, in that scenario, when Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam came into the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he was sick and he couldn't get up to greet her and to kiss her on her forehead, and then, like we said, she had bent over to kiss him and hug him. When that happened, the first time she had bent over, to kiss him and hug him, the Prophet ﷺ had whispered something in her ear. In any case, we'll get into what that was in a second. So when Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam bent over to kiss him and hug him, and she got up, she started crying a lot. She started crying a lot. And then the Prophet ﷺ kind of gave her a sign to come back, and she came back and she gave him another hug and another kiss. And then when she got up, she smiled. And then Sayyidina Fatima ﷺ is Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha is narrating this hadith, and she's saying that this whole thing happened, and I saw all this essentially, and I saw Sayyidina Fatima, and I knew that there was no woman amongst all of us who was more level-headed, if you would, or more sane than Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam. That she's not one to lose her mind. So she's like, when I saw her, go the first time, and she got up and she started crying, and then she went the second time and she got up and she was, had this huge smile on her face. She's like, it's not that she lost her mind. I knew she would never lose her mind because this is Fatima alayhi salam. These are the words of Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha. Now, so Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha waited until the passing of the Prophet alayhi salam to come and ask her what happened. She says, I know you, and you're not insane. You would never lose your mind like that. So something happened, and I couldn't ask you at the time because I didn't feel it was suitable. So now I'm asking you, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has now passed, what happened? Why did you cry the first time and then laugh the second time and smile the second time? She says, because the first time my father, the Prophet ﷺ, informed me that this was the end and that he was about to pass away. So obviously she got up and she was very emotional and she started crying. And then he called her back. And then he said to her, however, you are the first one to follow me, ya Fatima. So then she smiled and she was happy and she rejoiced. Subhanallah, who, if ever told that you're about to die or you're the next person to die, would rejoice and show this happiness? This is the iman of Sitna Fatima alayhi salam. And this is what happens when true iman enters your heart. Like we've been seeing in all the videos and the reels and everything that we've been seeing from our brothers and sisters in Palestine, and even the children of Palestine and around the world. And you see true iman enters your heart, this is how you respond. She was happy that the Prophet ﷺ told her that you're next. So again, keep in mind, and I'm going to keep reminding us that these scenarios is exactly, what elevated Sitna Fatima alayhi salam above her siblings. So because again, some people be like, they get this, allergic reaction when you say this, but whether we like it or not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who put her in these situations, and those are blessings from Allah, that she had the opportunity to be in these situations. Now another one, an Sitna Aisha, again from Sitna Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, Sitna Fatima alayhi salam only lived 6 months after the death of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And this was from her extreme pain and her extreme sorrow in losing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Another hadith from Zuhri said the same thing, and another one from Abdullah ibn al-Harith said the same thing, and then he added that وَهِيَ تَذُوب, and basically that she was melting and she was essentially falling apart because of her sorrow in missing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after his passing. Now there is an opinion which says that she passed away 3 months after the passing of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, it is not sahih. But in any case, it's from Abi Ja'far al-Bakar radiallahu anhu alayhi salam, that he says that she passed away 3 months after the death of the Prophet alayhi salam, and he also added that she was never seen smiling or laughing after the death of the Prophet alayhi salam. And this is something which was very well known. Everybody knew this about her. This was nothing new. So this part of the hadith is absolutely sahih. However, the 3 months is not, and there could have been a misunderstanding with regards to the 3, because it was very possible that it was 3 nights. خلونا من شهر رمضان. It was 3 nights. It was after the 3rd night in Ramadan. And by the way, she was 29 years old when she passed away, alayha salam radiallahu anha. 29 years old. And she passed away 6 months after the passing of her father, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, again because of her extreme attachment and love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ويؤيد ما جاء في الصحيح عن البخاري من حديث أم المؤمنين الذي ذكرت فيه الخلاف بين فاطمة وأبي بكر. So now, later on, when we talk about the khilaf or the disagreement, if you would, between Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam and Abu Bakr, which radiallahu anhu, which we're going to get into in the next dars, inshallah, there's parts of those ahadith which also prove that she passed away 6 months after the death of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. However, like I said, we're going to get into those subjects in later durus, inshallah. And sorry, and those ahadith are muttafaq alayh, so there's no difference of opinion, or sorry, they're completely sound sahih ahadith, inshallah. But like I said, we'll get into those in due time. All right. وقد فضلها الله تعالى بالذرية الطاهرة. And one of the greatest virtues that she was blessed with from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that she was blessed with, again, the lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously being the mother of, obviously, Sayyidah Shababi Ahl al-Jannah, etc. And essentially all of the grandchildren of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was the only one who was blessed with that honor. Now, قال الحافظ ابن كثير. So, الحافظ ابن كثير رحمة الله عليه, he says في البداية والنهاية, in his book البداية والنهاية, أول زوجة تزوجها علي رضي الله عنه فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He's saying that the first wife that Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu alayhi salam had married was Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam. This is very well known. He got remarried later on, obviously not in her life. بنى بها بعد وقعة بدر. They consummated the marriage after Badr. فولدت له الحسن. And so Imam Al-Hafiz Ibn Kathir, he says rahmatullah alayh, he says, and the children that they had were obviously Al-Hasan, Al-Hussein, and he says ويقال محسنا ومات وهو صغير وولدت له زينب الكبرى وأم كلثوم. So they had Hassan wa Hussein wa Muhsin. Muhsin is one of their children from our books, from Sunni books, from Sunni sources. And then obviously Zayn al-Kubra and Kulthum. So they had 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. Muhsin was one of their children. And unfortunately, a lot of Sunnis are like, no, Muhsin doesn't exist. This is just a creation of the Shi'as. Absolutely not. The problem is we live in a time where we're in between the two extremes. The side that says, oh, he never existed just because the Shi'as say he existed. And then, the side that, makes up, fairy tale stories about them. And we're going to prove later on in the Shia books, within their own books, within their sources, as to what is right and what is wrong. Just to prove that Muhsin, for example, alayhi salam, did exist. However, he passed away very, very young. He actually passed away in the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How much time do we have? All right, we're basically done. Last hadith, inshallah. So, like we said, Muhsin passed away during the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Passed away very young, which is probably why there's not much seerah on him. However, like we said, unfortunately, some people took it to one extreme and made these crazy movies about him, and then other people just denied that he ever existed, which is absolutely false as well. So here we have a hadith from Sayyidina Ali, karramallahu wajha radiallahu anhu. So he is the one narrating the hadith. He says, when Sayyidina al-Hasan alayhi salam was born, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he came and he says, show me my son. And again, I'm going to keep reminding us of these just to refer back to what we spoke about in the past about father. The terms in Arabic, father and son, etc., are not always literally the actual father or actual son. But in this case, he says, where is my son? Obviously, he's not his son, he's his grandson. And then he says, where is my son? What have you named him? قلت سميته حربا. So Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu alayhi salam, listen to this hadith. He says, I named him Harb. Harb means like war. It means war. So then the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says, قال بل هو حسن. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam changed his name and he says, no, he is Hassan. And then Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu continues on and he continues narrating the hadith. He says, and then when Sayyidina Hussein alayhi salam was born, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam came and he said, show me my son. Again, what have you named him? And Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he says, I named him Harba. I named him Harb. Again, he said, I named him more. He says, Bal huwa Hussein. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam changed his name again. He says, no, he is Hussein. So Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu is really stuck on the name Harb, on the name war. War or battle, etc. And then he says, فَلَمَّا وَلَدْتُ الثَّالِث. And then when we had our third child, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came and he says, show me my son. What have you named him? Naturally, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu alayhi salam, he says, I named him Harba. I named him Harb. I named him war or battle, etc. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, Bal huwa Muhsin. He named him again as well. And he says, his name is Muhsin. Muhsin exists. And then the Prophet ﷺ then clarified and he says, I name them after the children of Harun alayhi salam. And he says their names were Shabbar wa Shabir wa Mubashir, which essentially have the same meaning of Hassan wa Hussein wa Muhsin. So Shabbar wa Shabir wa Mubashir. And that is the end of the hadith. And again, this is a sahih hadith, which shows that Muhsin did exist and was one of the grandchildren of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the children obviously of Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Fatima alayhim salam. Now, inshallah, like I said, next dars we're going to get into the khilaf or the difference of opinion between Sayyidina Fatima alayhi salam and Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and we're going to discuss it in great detail, etc. inshallah. But that's it for today. There will not be a dars next week because I know a lot of guys are going to be busy with RAS and things like that. So there's no dars next week. Inshallah, we'll catch up inshallah the week after. All right. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. جزاكم الله خير.